And let me tell you, delegating people don't realize how hard it is. It's not as easy as we think. Oh, we're going to delegate. Yeah, no, you're not. It's not that easy, right? Because delegating requires a couple things. One, it requires you knowing what you're doing at some point. Number two, it requires you taking it from the mind and putting it out so it's reproducible somewhere. And it also requires you to train. Most people that delegate don't want to train. They think, well, this person came with 10 years of experience, so they should know. Absolutely not. You still have to train. And so that tends to be one of the greatest hiccups.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Traversing Entrepreneurship podcast, a show for business owners who set out to do something different and did not stop there. This is Derek DeLomo coming to you from Traverse City, Michigan, the city that inspired the name of this show. With over 17 years of experience in the financial industry, I've heard my fair share of successes as well as horror stories in business. On this podcast, I enjoy sitting down with a variety of entrepreneurs to talk about what it takes to build a successful business, including all the ups and downs that come along with doing something different and paving your own way in life. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Natasha Davis. Natasha is the CEO and founder of Impact Branding Consulting Incorporated and the creator of the CRM software, the Profit Enhancer Analysis. Natasha specializes in positioning the daily operations of corporations and government agencies to perform in alignment with the vision of the leader through the strategic planning and branding. Her specialty is helping entrepreneurs, companies, and governments create brands that have sustainable and profitable impact. She believes that every business owner and leader should think big, build momentum, and scale fast. Welcome to the show, Natasha. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hanging out.
Yeah. So, Natasha, can you give us a little bit about your story, your background, give our listeners a sense of how you got started and maybe what life was like before you started Impact Branding Consulting?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So life before being a businesswoman was me being a registered nurse in the emergency room. I'm a trauma nurse. And while I was being a trauma nurse, I always had this little thing that would linger on me and like, hey, you know, you want that business, go and make it happen. And so I would dabble a little bit over in the business world. And then I realized that I had this hunger for it. And so I then transitioned over and started in business. I started out with one company just to test the waters to make sure I really wanted this thing. After a year of being in business, I shut that business down and started my second company, which was exactly what I wanted to do. And then shortly after some life transitions, I shut that second business down and started this third company, Impact Branding Consulting. And so that is who I am. That's where I am today.
So trauma nurse to business owner.
That's it. That's it.
What kind of skills or what would you say your skills as a trauma nurse have you continued to use as an entrepreneur?
Wow. Well, little did I know that I would be using many of my skills. So many of my skills would be critical thinking. Critical thinking is a massive part of what I do on a daily basis, even not only for my clients, but as a businesswoman, I have to do a lot of critical thinking and make the certain hard decisions and quick decisions as well. So also the transferable skill is the skill of triage. So in healthcare, we call it triage, but I'm also triaging, priorities and issues, not only within my company, but also within the company of my clients. So the triage skills, and putting a priority to it has also been a skill that has transferred over, and also the ability to be able to multitask, but multitask with the element of efficiency, because there are people that can multitask, but it's not very efficient. So the transferable skill that I brought over from healthcare is that I'm able to multitask, but I'm multitasking and maintaining efficiency and accuracy.
Yeah, multitask. I'm a firm believer that multitasking is not possible. Because anytime I try to multitask, it's like, okay, I start one project and then I get halfway through it, start another one, get halfway through it, and then all of a sudden I have 3 projects that aren't finished. But I envy those that can actually do concurrent things at the same, while doing them all efficiently, like you said.
I didn't realize that was something that everyone doesn't have. I thought that was just a normal, not realizing, no, I was actually trained to manage multiple things at the same time without missing a beat. And so that was a real powerful transferable skill that I have. And so once I got into business, it used to baffle me. I'm like, how could you not handle 2 things at once? Like, I'm handling 5. What's the problem?
What's wrong with you? What's
wrong
wrong
with
with
you,
you?
right? And then I realized, hold on, sister girl, time out. That is not a skill that everyone has. And also, if you haven't been trained in the ability to do that, you haven't worked in that, I personally don't advise you doing that multitasking because things will fall through the cracks and your head will explode and all that good stuff. But I'm really happy and honored that that is a transferable skill. I love the fact that I'm coming from the world as a registered nurse and transferring over. So if I had to do it over again, I'd follow the same pathway.
So you mentioned in the intro, or in your background, you kind of had the itch, to get into business. What was it that propelled you to start that first business?
My father. So may he rest in peace. God love him. I've come from a pretty heavy or significant entrepreneurship family. And so crossing into entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily going to be a hard stretch. And so once the entrepreneurship bug bit me, I kept trying to fight it off because I mean, what's wrong with you? You went to nursing school, you got this student loan you need to pay back, right? So you need to work, right? And so I remember I talked to my father periodically and he, would always come up with a business idea. And once I converted over, it was like he said, of course, he says, you are my little entrepreneurship bunny. Of all my children, I have 8 siblings. He goes, I knew you would be the first one to go. And so it kind of was just in my blood. I guess it was an innate, and it's been all around me. I've had my grandmothers had their own business, my uncles, aunts had their own business, my father. So I have been surrounded by entrepreneurship since I was born.
Interesting. Was there anything within your, your trauma world or, in the nursing world that stuck out to you that was like, I wanted to do this as opposed to this? Or was there a progression through your career that gave you the idea, like, now is a good time to do this? Or I guess I'm fishing for, what is, everybody's got some point in
Yeah.
their life that says, this is when and why I started it. Was there
Yeah.
anything that through your career that was like, oh, I'm getting fed up with this, or I
Mhm.
saw something over here? What was
Yeah.
that for you?
Let me tell you, I remember it like it was yesterday. Okay. I remember I started feeling the transition. I kept fighting it. I kept fighting it because, again, the shame and the guilt of how could you think of leaving nursing and this is what you went to school for and whatever, even though I was very intrigued on the other side. So, to be honest, I played both sides, like I was cheating on my nursing life, business life. I wasn't faithful. I wasn't faithful at all. Right. And so shame, 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 right? I
Shame,
was a
shame,
really
shame.
faithful woman. And so I would play over in business. And while I was in nursing, I went on my days off. I would go and I'd step into the business world and I kept the two worlds very separate. So my nursing world never knew about my business world and my business world never knew about my nursing world. And I remember over time, it literally began to feel like a weight, like I was
Hmm.
carrying this heavy load because I was so hungry for the business world. And I remember one day I finished my 12-hour shift that just was heavier, heavier. I got into my car and I just broke down and bawled like literally like a blubbering idiot, just bawled. And I couldn't make sense out of what I was feeling because what is wrong with you? Like people are dying to have this nursing career and everything. And you wanted this. And I mean, I was like, I just don't want this anymore. And that was the pivotal moment for me. The beginning change where it's like, you got to get out of here because it just felt like I was suffocating. I was suffocating. I couldn't get out. And the thing that made me 100% go all in was the day when, and I had written and published my first book already. It was the day where I went into work and I had a manager who just we were not on the same page. We didn't resonate at all, right? It was like oil and water. And I remember she called me in and the first conversation was, well, we were going to give you your 3% raise, but because you don't pick up extra shifts and because you don't do this, and the only thing I heard was, 3%? Like, honey, I make that by my book sales and you're threatening me with 3%. Like, I don't even need this job. Like, I had this whole funky attitude. And then the funky attitude quickly escalated to a pink slip. Now, here's the funny thing. I didn't even know pink slips were really pink. I thought it was just a word. So I didn't know because I've never been fired before. I've never been fired. And so when I got the pink slip, the first thing I was like, first of all, I didn't know they were really pink. Secondly, bye, because I have a networking event I need to get to tonight anyway. So I got to go. And so I didn't care. Like, it was time for me to go. So I didn't make the decision. So the universe made the decision for me. I was fired, but I was like, next, and I just kept rolling on. So that was the shift.
Sure. And so that was the transition. I mean, it's a heavy transition, even though it's a positive transition for you.
Right.
It's fairly emotional to be like, okay, I had this, I wanted this,
Right.
this was handed to me, and I got to go do this. It's positive for you. I've heard the other side of that being like, I didn't have anything lined up and I got laid off and had to figure out something to do. So here I started this.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely had a different road and a different map. And I'm definitely grateful for the journey that I had. And I am grateful for the termination, because I really don't know, would I have had enough courage to go ahead and step all the way out. And little did I know that being able to be pushed away from nursing, I was able to do much more in my business, and I was able to sharpen my skills and just become better. And like I said, I kept my nursing world so separate. Like, my business world never knew anything about it. It's
Sure.
like they looked at me like, where'd you come? Did you like fall from the sky? Like, what were you doing for the past 12 years? Where'd you come from? And
Right.
to be honest, it was several years into business, at least 7 or 8 years into business, that I began to pull the layers back, and I exposed that, yep, I'm also a registered nurse. And again, little did I know that that was going to open up a massive, massive flood of opportunities for me, just by merely being open about the fact that I'm also a registered nurse and a businesswoman.
All right, we'll come back to that in just a second. Can you, because I want to know how, opening up and I guess exposing the fact that you were a registered nurse, what vein of businesses that led to. But let's talk about impact branding consulting for a second. Can you give us like the, I guess, short overview of what your company does currently?
Yes, absolutely. So Impact Branding Consulting is basically a strategic planning and risk management company. And we focus on making sure that companies not only have structure, but they have strategy and they have scale. And so that's our core function, is to make sure there's structure, strategy, and scale for any company that is looking for those three things. And so we specialize in moving those companies forward so they can be sustainable and profitable.
Okay. So where did your love of strategy and scale come from?
Oh, you know what? I don't know what happened, but I let my dad tell it and my mom tell it. I've always had this thing about me that I was always about structure. I was always about, let's make something better. I mean, if we're going to do it, let's do it, right? Like, if, we're going to make it happen. I believe that the first moment I can remember where I literally had like fangs coming out of my mouth, like dripping with blood. I was salivating over strategy, was when I was given the opportunity to participate in with a client, and we had to build out the growth strategy, and we had to put all the pieces together. And I loved every minute of it. I felt so alive. That was probably about 6 or 7 months after I had left, or actually been terminated. I left the healthcare bedside, right? And I remember that I felt so alive, like every fiber in my being, every cell was lit up. And I was like, oh my sweet baby Jesus, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I was so happy. And I was also nervous and scared as well, because I was thinking, whoa, it's almost like you touch a hot stove and you jump
Yeah.
back. It's like, oh my God, wait a second. What is this power that I have? Like, what is this? And I didn't know the genius and the brilliance I had. I really didn't. I was like, I can't be, and I'm not trying to be grandiose, but I was like, I can't be this damn good. Like, seriously. So of course I kept like, okay, back off. And I would shrink down a little bit, and I would shrink down and not be as outward. Well, that was then. Now I'm like, let it roll, baby. I'm here.
Bring it on.
Bring
Bring it
it on,
on.
bring it on. And so, but I didn't realize the genius that I had. Like, my brain just works like that. So my first evidence of how much I love this was about 6 or 8 months after I left healthcare. I was like, oh my God, I love this.
Okay. In the process of all this, you've also created a software, the Profit Enhancer.
Yep.
How did you create that software? What led you to create that software?
So I'll start with what led me to create that software. So I am just a problem solver. If I see a problem, I want to fix it because I feel like if it's a problem, it's messing up my flow. And so I need to fix this. I need to remove this. I need to take the shortest, most direct route to get this solution done. And I remember when I sat down, I remember it like it was probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning where I started like drafting out on a spreadsheet what I'm looking for, like what is it I need. And the reason why this happened was probably around a couple years in, 4 or 5 years in business, I realized I said there's a missing link here. So the missing link was the conversation, the transparency, the connectivity between consultant and the client. And what was happening is in the type of consulting that I do, which is again, strategic planning and risk management, there's not a lot of tangible things. And so when you come across a client who was really struggling, they were already in their weird mental space, right? And so you're trying to show them the reason why we don't do this right now is because of this. And the reason why you should do this is because of that. So there's nothing tangible. So then you had a client that was either doing what am I paying you for? Well, first of all, if you would listen, you'd know what you're getting paid, what you're paying for. Because, some clients, they don't like to listen now. Eric, they don't like to listen.
No.
And so I got to a point where I remember I was just so frustrated. I was like, okay, what's going to be a solution? One, how can I sit with a prospect and get a proposal out to them while I'm sitting with them to get their yes now, so I don't waste time going back to the office to write up a proposal that they never was going to accept anyway. So how do I fix that? The other thing I wanted to fix was when this prospect does come to me, I need a stronger BS meter because I need to know how much BS am I going to deal with this person. And so what I did is I put on my science brain from my nursing brain and I said, I need a psychological piece of the puzzle to a tool. Now, I'll pause there. I went looking for something. I did. I went looking for a software because I'm not a software person. I'm a registered nurse. Like, give me a break. I got a master's and
Right.
this is not what I do. So I went looking for something to give me this. And what I ended up finding was 4 different tools to do all of this. I'm like, well, this can't be reasonable. I need one system. So that was the first thing. Those were the first issues. And then after that, I wanted to create this element of transparency. So once I said, I want all of these things in one tool, that's how this started. I didn't sleep that night. I probably started about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was up till like 8 o'clock, bags under my eyes, looking crazy. Like, oh, this is really good. After I came up with this raw concept, I used it internally with my clients and it was working. But I'd never thought about developing it for other consultants to use until my mentor, we were sitting down and he said, okay, so what exactly are you doing with this? I'm like, I'm working with my clients. He goes, why are you being so selfish? I'm like, oh, clutch my pearls. Selfish? How could I? Selfish? He was like, me? I have a nurse's heart, for God's sake. I'm not selfish. And he goes, but you're keeping this to yourself. And if it's helping you, why can't it help others? That's when the journey started of, okay, how do I get this thing developed? I need a programmer. I need someone who can interpret what I did. So that's where that journey began. That was like a 3.5 or 4 year journey to get it from raw stage to an actual software that is other consultants currently subscribe to, and they get to use it in their business. Yeah.
See, sounds like you kind of created not only a proposal generator, but also a lie detector test.
It really is. It really is. It's like, I feel like consultants should have the right to add a PIA surcharge. Like if you're going to be a PIA, I have the right to have a surcharge. And for those who don't know what PIA is, Derek can
Pain in the ass.
His show, he gets to elaborate that. So I did. I was like, you're dealing with someone, like, I need to know, one, do I want to deal with this level of PIA? And if I do deal with it, I'm going to add a surcharge to this because I need to know who I'm dealing with. And so that's what's worked out, because sometimes we don't know what we're accepting. Like, it's like going on your first date. I'm going to see the best of you. You're going to be the most sweetest, the cleanest, the prettiest, the most honesty-ist person, right?
And then you move in together.
And then you move in and you find out, oh, wait a minute. do not like you. Like, wait, So that's what this tool does. It really does increase the efficiency and also the precision of the consultant as well.
Sure. Good. Um, so how have you, I guess, scaled your business over time?
Well, so the first thing I do as a strategist, I actually plan for scale. That's the first thing. I don't scale on by mistake. There's no scaling by mistake. So obviously my goal is to always look at how can we become better? How can we serve more? How can we serve higher? So I always plan for scale. We map it out. We know what we're doing for the year. We know what we're doing for the quarter. One of the ways that I looked at scaling is I remember that the first thing I wanted to do was to duplicate multiple pieces of me. Like the first thing I wanted to do was duplicate me in different capacities. And so I stopped and I said, okay, if I want to scale to this level, what is it really going to take? It's going to take a couple more of me's in certain departments, in certain areas. And so I started out with bringing on people who could support me in the certain areas that I was needing help in. And my first place was starting like in the admin levels. I started a little bit more on client management levels. People needed to actually manage service delivery. We would manage projects. Like I didn't always want to be the one that had to go and do all the research for certain things. So I had to hire someone who understood research. So the first thing I did was knowing where I wanted to scale and how I wanted to get there, and then saying, okay, what's the missing piece of the puzzle now? In the beginning, I didn't duplicate me, the strategist. I wasn't ready to duplicate me, the strategist. I need to duplicate all the other pieces of the puzzle of who I was and how I was showing up so that I can serve more clients. And then I looked at geographically, where do I want to go? So I first was looking at, I want to scale where I am, but then I started looking at how do I reach other geographical territories and things of that nature. So those were my first top scale reasons or views that I was looking at. And then I then looked at diversity in like revenue streams. So what I do here is it requires me to show up. Like again, we don't do podcasts unless you show up, right? So it's the same thing as a consultant. You don't get paid unless you show up. You don't get paid unless you consult. You do what you're supposed to do, right? And so that was my next level of scale is where do I create a whole nother revenue streams so that I'm not only dependent on one source of income, because one source of revenue, one source of income is beautiful. I mean, I love what I do, but what are some other categories I can get into? And so therefore I've created this really beautiful diversification where money comes in from different angles.
How many sources of income streams do you have now?
5.
Spectacular.
Thank you.
It sounds like, you started with learning how to delegate. I mean, to put it in simple terms, learning how to delegate, and then, using that delegation to use your time to go create other sources of income.
Yeah. And to be honest, you can't go that extra level. You can't scale without delegating. And let me tell you, delegating is people don't realize how hard it is. It's not as easy as we think. Oh, we're going to delegate. Yeah, no, you're not. It's not that easy, right? Because delegating requires a couple things. One, it requires you knowing what you're doing at some point. Number 2, it requires you taking it from the mind and putting it out so it's reproducible somewhere. And it also requires you to train. Most people that delegate don't want to train. They think, well, this person came with 10 years of experience, so they should know. Absolutely not. You still have to train. And so that tends to be one of the greatest hiccups is train the person to think like you or to take your thoughts and to reproduce it. But also here's the other thing. There has to be also a level of trust. I have to trust the person to do what I need to do and also trust them enough that I leave them alone to go do what they need to do. As long as, and this is something I had to learn, here's the end goal, period. I don't care how you get there as long as you get there legally and on time. Point blank, period. And
Yep.
that is the big let go that people want to micromanage how someone gets to the end goal. That's the hardest part, letting go. I don't care how you get there. Just make sure you get there legally and you get there on time. Now, legally is split into two: legally according to the law and legally according to the policies and procedures of this company. So you got to get there keeping these things in mind, and then you let it go and you walk away. I don't care how you get there. And that took me a while to let go of. I remember seeing something. I'm like, oh, I would not have used that font. I promise you, I wouldn't have used that font. And I'm sitting there in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, does the font make this wrong, inaccurate? Is this gonna mess up the whole concept like this? And I'm letting it go. And I'm telling you, I'm sitting there, sweat running down, my mouth's dry, my stomach's in knots. That font is just so not. Who cares?
Sometimes I wish they made a font that was in crayon. Just to make it as ridiculous as possible.
Just let it roll.
Because generally, details matter.
Yes.
But it's not always the little details that are making the make or break thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I heard quite a bit in there of basically, you to be able to delegate, you have to know what you do, what you don't do, who you work with, who you don't work with, how you do it, etc. How long did it take you to figure that out, to be able to articulate that for yourself?
Probably about 7 or 8 years. 7 or 8 years in. When I crossed over into being a full-time businesswoman, the first 4 years was absolute hell because I didn't know what it meant to be a full-time businesswoman. I knew my skill and my craft, but knowing your skill and your craft and knowing how to own a company and not just a hobby, like I'm running a business here and this is my bread and butter now. Because remember now, Derek, I done got fired.
Right. We've been down that road before.
Right. Which again, remember, I didn't know pink slips were really pink. So I got fired. And so I remember a funny story. I'm in my office and I did what I saw like on social media and on TV. Okay. When you're in business, you got the little Rolodex on your desk. You got a phone. You got to have that phone on your desk and you sit there and you have your computer up and you're not really typing anything. You're just there. You got a yellow pad and a pen. And I sat there waiting for that phone to ring, Derek. And for some unknown reason, the phone did not ring. I would pick the phone up to make sure dial tone was there. I had people call me back. Just, can you call my mom or my aunt? Could you call me back? I just want to make sure the phone's working. Nobody called. Here's what I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to hunt.
Yep.
I didn't know how to hunt for business. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know any of that. Now, I could sell myself when I'm put in the position. If I'm in a networking event, I could sell myself. If me and you together, I got that. But I did not know how to hunt for business. I didn't know how to market for business. And I sat my cute little self in my office waiting for that phone to ring. It never rang. And I can tell you what happens when the phone doesn't ring. Your pipeline's empty. And if your pipeline's empty, so is your bank account.
Yep.
So the first 4 years was like, what is this evilness? Like, who does this?
What did I decide to do?
What happened here? And so that's what I'm saying. It took me about 7 or 8 years when I realized you need to get it together, girlfriend, because if this is what you're really doing, once you get a taste of true independence as a businesswoman, and this is what you love, it is very hard to go back to work for people.
Very much so.
It's very hard. Like I tell people, I am gainfully unemployed at this point. I'm about 16, 17 years in the game now. Nobody wants me. They don't want me on their payroll. They don't want me. I'm like, I'll be your consultant. They don't want me there. They don't want me. They're like, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. You going to come in and change everything up? Make me look crazy? No, ma'am. I was like,
you
listen,
got funky attitude.
Funky attitude too. Like, I'll even be the assistant. I'll be the, no, you won't. Because I can't even put you in the janitor position. You going to mess everything up. I can't do it.
So how you've gone through this 7 to 8 years of being able to articulate before you were able to articulate these things for yourself. How do you now, and how quickly are you able to help other entrepreneurs articulate this for themselves working through your company?
Well, my goal is to, within the first 12 months, is to create a 10-10-10 experience. And that's 10% increase in revenue, 10% decrease in waste, and 10% increase in productivity. Productivity is also tied to your ability to not only delegate, to be able to articulate, to market, to build strategy, to scale. And so it was the thing that gets me is I remember still to this day, 17 years in, I still remember the way I felt when I wasn't being a good businesswoman. I still remember to this day what it felt like to be struggling to figure out the how this business worked and to struggle to figure things out. I still remember to this day what it felt like. And so my joy and my honor is when I do get to work with clients. That's my whole focus is if you want this, I will get it for you. I will give it to you. And you have to want it, which means that persons that say, yes, we're going to hire your company, they have to be willing to not only listen, but also to follow the implementation of it. Go through even through the fear, even through the anxiety of it, like, oh my gosh, because change is very, very uncomfortable. Also, when someone realizes that you don't have it together, that is not a good place because as a business owner, you're like, I don't want anyone to see my dirty drawers. That's really what it is. Like, I don't want you seeing my dirty drawers. My dress is clean. My suit's all pretty, but my drawers are dirty. I don't want you to see that. The mental shift in that is too much. And so I have to approach these things when I identify the areas that are gaps in a company. I make sure that I address these things from a very loving place because you come out somebody too harsh, not only will they fire you, but they're going to have all the other emotional pains they have, but they're not going to get the help either.
Yep.
And so I have to come at it a very clean level. So within the first 12 months is a goal. We have a lot of turnaround. I focus on the biggest elephant in the room or the thing that's weighing the company down the most. And sometimes it is the CEO. And I got to get in with them and sit them
Probably a
down.
lot of the times it is the
And
CEO.
I didn't want to say it, but you said it. I'll go with you. Yes. Yes. A lot of times it really is. It's like, it's different reasons. I've had clients, CISO that were focused on the next biggest thing, or
Always.
they refuse to delegate, or they refuse to change, or they refuse to look. Like that's one of the most hardest ones is when you pull layers back and you're like, I'm showing you what's wrong. They're like, no, it's not. Okay, let's try this again. If you look at it, I'm not looking at that. That's not, take that away. Right. Close my eyes. La, 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 la. Right. I'm not looking at it. Those are the hard ones because when you get someone who refuses to look at what's wrong, they will live in this really unhealthy place of denial. And I remember
Yep.
I had a client we had them about 7 or 8 months and they lived in denial. Company was doing about 5 million, but the 5 million, when you talk about profits, the profits were not there. So you have a $5 million revenue and you have zero profits. Does anyone see a problem with this? This is a problem. And right here, pick me. And so when I was like, okay, let's figure out what's wrong. And so when I discovered what was wrong, they didn't want to see that. And here's a principle that I learned a long time ago. I'm going to say it and then I'm going to give it another phrase. 1, hire slow, fire fast. 2, don't hire someone you're not willing to let go of. This company had such an emotional attachment to the very exact person who was financially burdening and hurting the company because of their ineffective decisions, their oversights and everything. Again, pretty clean dress, pretty clean suit, dirty drawers. And that's really what it was. And I said, we can fix this, but this is how it has to be fixed. The benefit was I wasn't even advocating to terminate the person. I'm like, let's get them trained up. Let's clean some things up. But they were like this, like, I'm not looking at this. This can't be true. We have 5 million, but you have zero profits.
Yep.
All it takes is for 2 clients to pull the rug from underneath you and your company is going to topple. It's going to crumble. They never figured it out. So after 7 or 8 months and we were fighting, I was like, this is probably not going to work. Okay. It's not going to work. This is not good for my ego because I need to see you win and you're not winning. So this is not going to work either.
So is that company still in business?
Barely. Yes. Barely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would take from this that they were not your ideal client.
Absolutely not.
Was this the last time you worked with a non-ideal client?
Oh no, 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 no. No, I wish we, at some point, we all end up working with non-ideal clients at some point, for different reasons. We're like, I can help you. And they say they want the help. And he's like, I can really help you. And in the beginning, they want the help. But again, their ego and all their emotional junk gets in the way, and they run for the hills. They run for the hills. There's a difference between, I want to know what's wrong, and, oh my God, that's what's wrong. Oh, okay. There's a whole difference. It's a different feeling. It's a different dichotomy. It's a different emotion. I want to know what's wrong because I want to fix it. That usually means it's not me. Clearly what's wrong has nothing to do with me. So when you find out which one of these folk messing up the business, then we'll deal with it. But then when you tell them, okay, well, actually, it's you. It's what you're doing. It's your decisions. It's your lack. It's your oversight. They're like, no, it's not. Well, I don't know if this is working anymore. You damn right this ain't working. You right.
It's like that Taylor Swift song, you know. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. You know.
I know, it's like what? So I've seen that. I've seen it with $10 million companies. I've seen it with $250,000 companies. The most painful one was the one that was about 10 million. They just were so oblivious to it. I'm talking about head was all the way in the clouds. And shortly there, I mean, the business is really, really suffering. Like they lost so much of their staff. They're losing contracts. It's just ridiculous. It's sad. It wasn't necessary, but yeah.
All because of, generally, is it all usually because of one or two people?
Exactly. We all got to listen. And at some point, we none of us knows what's always right. Right. And so when we look for help, the hope is that help will give us the help we need so we can get better. And if I can just transfer knowledge to everyone that's in it, always be open to receive the abundance of the universe. And that abundance can come in different forms. It can come in the form of a consultant. It can come in the form of even a team member, someone you hire that's like, hey, I'm seeing something and we did this at this company and this doesn't work anymore, whatever. Like as the CEO of the company, if you can always just keep your ego aside and be open, things will get better. And it's like that never stop learning principle. Like I can learn from anyone, and I can learn from the janitor. I can learn from anybody. Like, but if you ever walk in and you're like, all of a sudden your ears and your head is closed, you can't learn from anyone because you think you got it figured out. That's not a good place. Not a good place at all. Not a good place at all.
No, it's not. And and you've been through this stuff, and
Yeah.
you mentioned that you would pull back sometimes when you were early on, and now that you're confident in the way you do things, and that's been recognized externally, correct?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I've definitely recognized, and that's been on a positive and a negative side as well. So it's been recognized positively where you get to a point in life where you are in business, you're super confident, you know what you know what you don't know. And the most beautiful place is to be at that juncture where you're like, you know something? I don't know that. I really don't know that, but I can figure that out for you. I can get the answer for you versus saying, I know everything when you're like, I have no idea what this person's talking about. So being able to be honest and transparent and say, listen, here is my wheelhouse. Here is my core competency. Here is what I do know. I know this. What you're asking, I'm not familiar with that. So let me go get someone who does know. I stand in my lane as a subject matter expert in strategy. That's where I am. I'm good. I'm happy. Don't call me asking me about finances and how to save on your taxes. I cannot help you. I can't help you. I really
That's
can't.
my lane.
Right, exactly. Like I can't help you. Like call Derek. I can't do anything. Now I can read a balance sheet and be like, okay, there's a situation here. I can look at your P&L and say, now you know what? Somebody's been playing with these numbers. There's a situation. But if you need to get really in there, go to the expert. That is why people go to college. That's why people go to courses. That's why people study their craft. Go and get the experts. And when you're in business long enough, you will need more than one consultant, more than one expert. One consultant cannot do it all. Like I call for backup. Like when there's certain things I'm doing, I will call for backup. That's it. And you have to call for backup. Now, on the negative side, people be like, oh, you cocky. Not really. I'm just confident, but, use whichever C you want to use. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
Like, oh,
Careful with some of those C words, but other,
I mean, right. Careful with a couple of them C's now, but, it's like, okay, like you have, but when you're comfortable and confident in knowing what you know and knowing that your whole purpose when you get up is to serve people with your gifts and with your talents, at the end of the day, like, you know what? You may not see it and it's okay. I don't need your permission or approval to be brilliant and to be great. It's already happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, probably the two or the two hardest things or two of the hardest things, knowing what you don't know and knowing when to ask for help.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, those are big steps.
I'm like, hello, I need help. I go to professional development courses and conferences all the time. I also go to personal development courses and conferences all the time. I am constantly looking at how do I become better, not only as a person, but also as a professional and as an expert. I was at a 3-day conference just the other day, learning how to sharpen my skills. Even in the area, like case in point, like we're all venturing into this place of AI, right? There's so much going on with AI. I'm not an AI expert. That's not no one pays me to be the expert in AI. However, I need to be aware of it. I need to be cognizant of it. I need to know how to incorporate it, right? So where do I go? I go to the expert. So I go and I sat there and I got training on AI, how it works. Had 2 of my team members. You guys jump on. Y'all need to learn this stuff. And so that now I put it on them. So my tech team, I'm like, you need to know this stuff. You make sure you know this inside and out. No one pays me to be an AI expert, right? That's not what I'm paid for, right? And so those are the things. But I will go and immerse myself so I can become better and better. I read a lot. I mean, I do a lot of reading. Every day, if not every other day, I am in some form of a podcast, a business podcast, or some form of a business course, learning how to sharpen my craft and also learning how to sharpen my skill. We can never stop learning, ever.
You can't. When you do, you're going to become stagnant and then it goes the other way.
Exactly.
And the whole reason I brought up the whole recognition externally is you were nominated for an award, correct?
Ooh, yay.
Look, but my whole point of bringing this up, is just to show kind of the progression of this is that, it's not a one size fits all thing, but Natasha knows exactly what the hell she's talking about.
Yes. Well, definitely. So there's in the past, 4-ish years or so, I've been awarded with several really great prestigious awards. The first one I got recognized with was the Lifetime Achievement Award by President Barack Obama. That was super, super awesome. I was very humbled by that. I was like, whoa, what in the what just happened? And that was super, super honorable. I still marvel at when I see it. I'm like, oh my God, you did that, girl. Yes, you did. So that was one award. Thereafter, I was awarded as the fastest growing home-based business of Georgia. I was like, wow, that's precious. Thank you so much. I was honored for that. And most recently, I have been recognized and awarded as the outstanding citizen for Georgia and pretty much deemed as an ambassador for the state of Georgia. So, I mean, if you want to travel out of country, Derek, roll with me. We just going right through consulates and all.
We don't even need TSA pre-check or clear. We're riding with Natasha. They put you on the fast track and just don't even have to walk. They'll push you through.
Just push me right through. Like, no, we together. He's with me. We rolling out, right? But that was very honorable to me because it showed that oftentimes you put your head down and you just work and you serve and you work and you serve, but you don't realize how many other people are watching you. And even on those really rough days, because nothing in business is easy peasy. You have some rough days. Sometimes you have rough months or a rough year. But once you put your head down and you commit to serving at your highest level and bringing your gifts and talents to the universe, I mean, you never know who's looking at you and you get that recognition of that. You keep going, just keep going, not to necessarily validate you, but it does validate you in a good way. Like, okay, keep going. Like, you got this. Go on, girl. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Those are, not only are those prestigious, but they're also, they're a pat on the back from not somebody that you are expecting a pat on the back from, right? I mean, that is,
Right.
one, getting the Lifetime Achievement Award from President Obama.
Well, the
Holy
honor.
smokes. you know?
Listen, you can't pay for these either. These are not awards you can pay for. You
No.
cannot pay for them. They come framed and in a real, I mean, they come ready. Like, you cannot pay for it. It's very prestigious. And when you look at it, it's one of those things that you look at it and you're like, all right, you know what? You got that. Come on, girl.
Yeah. So, when you talked earlier about uh, kind of not know, so your first 6, 8 months in business, you didn't know how to market, you didn't know how to advertise, you didn't know how to hustle, you didn't know how to hunt for business.
Right.
How did you learn? And then what advice would you give to someone who knows little or nothing about marketing and the difference between marketing and sales?
Wow. So the first thing is marketing and sales. Marketing is to everyone. Sales is a one-on-one thing. So if you're finding yourself at this point, right, guys, and you're like, I can talk one-on-one to anybody, I can close the deal. Well, you know how sales works. You got sales. But if you don't know how to reach the masses, you have that issue, that marketing problem, that traffic problem. And so marketing is where you're talking to many. Sales is where it's a one-on-one. I'm talking to one-on-one. So just think about it that way. How did I learn this? The first thing I learned was I'm like that nerdy type deal. I started learning. I started reading books. I started going to courses. I started figuring this thing out because I realized that there was a missing link. Like, what's the missing link here? Like, once I'm with you, I can close it. Once you give me the work, I can handle it. But getting the work in the door was my Achilles heel. And so had to learn how to market. I did courses. I read up a lot of books. I went to conferences. And then I sat down and I realized that marketing is a huge, huge, huge beast. And so I then had to make a decision. What type of marketing is going to resonate with me and resonate with my company, right? Because you have like transactional marketing, you have education marketing, entertainment marketing. So there's different types of marketing. And I had to figure out something that's going to resonate with me. Like, you're not going to see the chief visionary on TikTok dropping it like it's hot. It's not my type of marketing. I'm not doing it, right? Not happening. But guess what? That may work for other people, but that doesn't work for me. So the first thing I had to do is figure out, okay, what type of marketing actually resonates, one, with me, is authentic to me and to my company, which is also to the type of clients that we're looking for. So I had to really pay attention to that. Here's the other lesson. Marketing is not a crock pot. You can't set it and forget it. It is a daily, consistent process. Think of it like a Broadway show that never goes off. It's consistently showing up. It looks the same. It feels the same. It has the messaging. You don't look like 5 different versions of something. You can't, don't have a blue logo and very nice professional messaging this month, but then you feel like, I'm not getting enough people in. Let me switch my logo. I'm going to get this hot red logo and I'm going to be very risque in my marketing. It's not going to work. You can't do that. So you have to find what resonates with you, what's authentic to you. And then you need to run like your Broadway show, show up consistently and keep your head down and stay the course. Don't worry about what's happening to the left. Don't worry about what's happening to right. Just be consistent. But also you have to monitor it. A lot of times in business where you set it and you forget it. You can't set and forget marketing because you do have to adjust it. You have to pivot it. You have to adjust it to the market. So, like, let's use an example. Like, say, for example, you're saying, hey, we have this marketing campaign we're rolling out. And the intention behind the marketing campaign is that we want to target this particular state or city. That's where we want to open up. We want to head there. We got this particular campaign, which means it's a particular product or service we're going to roll out. Well, when you set it out, how are you monitoring the effect of it? Are you looking at the website numbers? Are you looking at the engagement numbers? Are you looking at the calls, the sales? What metrics are you looking at to make sure this thing is working? If
Yep.
you only have two messaging, if you send out an email, you have your two types. Maybe if email one doesn't get as much opening because the subject line isn't really appealing, but for some reason, every time you send out email concept number two, you got a bunch of opens, you got conversions. Well, you need to pivot. So that's what I mean by marketing is not a set it and forget it. You have to, it's consistent. You have to keep your eye on it. You have to keep your finger on the pulse. That was the big thing that I had to learn. And also, if you don't have a strategy, marketing will be a king's ransom for you. It will cost you your left kidney and your right toe. It is ridiculously expensive if you don't know what you're doing. You can't do microwave marketing. It's going to cost you so much, and you're not going to get the results that you need and that you're looking for. But your bank account's going to go dry.
Yep. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it
Right,
again.
got the t-shirt. I have blown a lot of money trying things. When I first started out, I remember blowing through well over 30 grand, playing around with marketing things, and not no consistently, literally touch and go. And when I tracked it, started looking at it, I about passed out. I was in bed for like a week. I was like, that was 30 grand. You know what I could have did with that money?
Could have taken one hell of a vacation.
Could have paid myself because in the beginning of time you don't even pay yourself. That's like a whole nother conversation. But I was like, I could have paid myself, so everybody else was getting paid but me. I was very annoyed. I was in bed for like a week. I was sick to my stomach.
Yeah. It's I tell you what, for after talking, I mean, obviously I know this going through it myself, but after talking with a bunch of people, it takes a certain type of person to enter and proceed on the entrepreneurial journey.
It
And
really does.
you have to be able to, multitask to a degree, but at least be able to compartmentalize things and
Yes.
say, this is important, this can wait. Nothing's generally ever on fire, but
Right.
here's what needs to be done today, here's what will be done tomorrow, here's what needs to be done next week. So I guess if you're looking at a young entrepreneur candidate who's working full time but has that same entrepreneurial bug that you did, what advice would you give to that man or woman?
So the first advice I would give is it takes time. There is no quick fix. It's not going to happen. Don't listen to the foolishness you're seeing on social media and the crazy stories that you hear. Okay. I'm telling you, it takes time. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's just not, right? So allow yourself to trust the process, but also to embrace the pause. There are these peaks and valleys in business, right? And we go up and then we hit a valley, right? And then you also have like this level, we level out sometimes. And so respect the process, but also embrace the pause. When you have a pause, that's where you need to say, okay, wait a second. What's going on? What do I need to fix? What do I need to pay attention to? Because when you're on the rise, things are moving so fast. Sometimes you don't have enough time to stop and look at what's working, what's not working, what's right. You're hitting and you're going. When you level out, you spend some time cleaning up. And definitely when you hit a valley, when things are not as pretty, as you'd like, that's where you need to clean up. You get extra focused. You get extra detailed. Don't put on blinders and don't do that. Get right in. Also, if you are transitioning from employee to entrepreneur, right? And notice I didn't say employer because you go from employee to entrepreneur, then you transition to employer. You ain't hiring nobody, okay? You don't have any money. The first thing I would say is number one, I would say you use your job to fund the business in the beginning. However, you have to also train that business to stand on its own 2 feet. You can't have an infant all the time. Just like children grow up, the business has to grow up. So you can't be breastfeeding this thing for 10 years now. Like somebody need to grow up at some point, right? So you have to set a plan. The business I will fund for, for 6 months or the first year, I will fund it. But the goal is that you're getting that business to learn to be self-sufficient within the capacity and the time that you have. But you have to plan a budget for it, just like how you budget for your rent or your mortgage, you budget the same thing, and you feed that business with its cutoff period, because the business have to do it. If you don't give that business a cutoff, if you don't say this is the cutoff, that business will bleed you. It will bleed you for years to come. I always try to tell my clients, and when I see someone like going in a weird direction, I always say, always remember this. Even if you have 0 clients, that business is going to cost you every single day of the month. Even if you have 0 paying clients, it's going to cost you every single day of the month. So if you have an active business, it's costing you. So therefore, you have to get it to learn how to be self-sufficient. And then the other thing I would say is, if someone is working at an environment where they have like e-learning opportunities, take advantage of those e-learning opportunities. I remember when I was in the workforce, there were some e-learning opportunities where I was able to learn how to do audits, so that you can be, we can do audits on a company. We can prepare companies to get their credentials and things of that nature. And that's an area that I do help my clients with, like, performance pay, and also to get credentials, ISO, JACO, all this other stuff. And while I was in the workforce, there were courses. So I would take the courses. I would also always volunteer to be on the committees for these things, because taking the course but then implementing it is 2 different things. So I was able to take the course but also work and implement it while I was there. That was pivotal in my business, because I was taking that skill and transfer that over into my business. So if anyone's working and they have e-learning opportunities, especially, you can get on, watch a course, take the course, and then put your hands up, volunteer to be on one of the committees that's implementing this thing, so that you can get your hands wet and you can get the experience.
Sure. How how does a aspiring business owner know when it's time to leave their full-time job?
Well, either you're going to get fired, or that's usually a partner.
Let's say they're doing it on their own.
So you're going to voluntarily leave. Okay, got it. So I will say that I knew that I should have left a long time ago. And here's how I knew it was time for me to leave. The first thing I knew it was time for me to leave is I was able to I was making more money than I was getting paid at my job. That's number
Okay.
one. I really was. I was making more money than what I was getting paid on my regular job. That's the key thing. So the key thing is, if you don't have to, don't jump out into the ocean with no support. Like, that's not necessary, especially if you have a family. There's no need to burden the family unnecessarily. Don't do that. But have that plan of, okay, when the business is paying me consistently for at least 6 months of my salary, I replace my salary, you can begin to transition out. Some people need a little bit more cushion. They need a year. Why? Because remember, when you leave that employee environment, you know what also leaves? Health insurance, benefits. Yep. So if you don't have someone who's, you're not on their benefits, you maybe talk to your spouse, say, here's the plan. I'm going to get on your benefits, but I'm going to, here's how that's going to work. And I will pay for my portion, however that works. But if you need a year to say, hey, I need medical benefits, then you need to do that for a full year. But not 1 month, not 2 months. I'm talking about 6 consecutive months on a minimum, that you are consistently replacing your salary from the employment. Like, you can't just jump off and leave. I always encourage people to have a budget. Like, you need to know how much it costs to not only live, but you need to know how much it costs to run your business. If you don't know how much it costs to run your business, you can't leave anywhere, because you have no idea how much it costs. Yep. So until you know how much it costs to truly operate your business every single day, every single month, and then you can match it with, okay, here's my living expenses. Those 2 numbers together is what you should be aspiring for consistently on a minimum. Because some people get paid more than they need, like on a job, right? I don't know if that's even true anymore, right? But some people, when you're working, you might be getting paid more than you actually need, right? You might be bringing home 125 or something like that, which, they tell you make six figures, but you come home with five, but still, some people get paid a little bit more. So if you're like, okay, well, I don't need to replace all that because I'm getting paid extra. Well, how much do I need to live? My personal expenses, plus how much it costs to run this business. Now, here's a trick. Here's a trick. How much it costs to run my business plus one. Plus one. Because at some point, you're going to do what within the next year? Hire somebody.
Hire.
So don't leave. I can take care of myself. Yeah, but you're going to need help. When you go full time in the business, you're going to have to hire someone. So you balance out how much it costs, but you always have a plus one on a minimum. Plus one, I'm going to hire someone. Now, in today's world, these people want a lot of money. So you have to make sure, don't think that you're paying someone $8, $9 an hour. What does it actually cost to hire this particular skill set? Is it 15 an hour? Is it 25 an hour? Is it 30 an hour? Is it 600 a month? Is it 1,000 a month? How much does it cost to hire my greatest weakness? Because the first hire is your weakness. You hire your weakness. The first thing, that's what you hire. Don't hire someone that does what you do. You can do it. So that's what you look at. Now, I'm bringing this in consistently for 6 to 12 months. It's time for me to walk away. I knew I should have walked away a long time ago. That lady had the right to fire me. I was just taking up space.
It's funny when you look back on things, how that works.
At the time, I was like, whatever. Bye, Felicia.
Bye. Yeah. So, but I mean, you're right with the hiring the weaknesses. I mean,
yeah.
when I hired Melissa, 5, 6 years ago, it was exactly that. It was, here's all the things that I can do, but here's all the time that it's taking me to do it, till 1 or 2 in the morning every night. You're like, this is not a good use of my time.
No.
Okay, right. Bring it over, delegate, you take over this. All of a sudden you free up this time and it is like weight off your shoulders.
The weight lifted. And that is the beginning stages of stepping into the zone of scale. I got to delegate. Yep. Somebody has to take this stuff. And again, it could be just like what you said, Derek. It's not that I don't know how to do it. It's that, one, I don't do it very well, or it takes me so much time to do it. And no one's paying me for this. No one pays me to do this. I need to be spending time working on things that people pay me to do. So you always hire your greatest weaknesses first, and then you go off and hire, your strengths so that you can duplicate yourself on your core levels.
Yep. I always think it is hard to duplicate yourself just because nobody's ever as good as you are.
I bet you when you're ready to scale and bring on 4, 5, 6 levels of revenue, you will duplicate yourself real quick, because I believe in rest. I believe in go to bed and get your rest. I really believe in that. Again, you do what you have to do. In the beginning, I probably slept in the beginning, maybe 3 or 4 hours. I was up. Also, at the time, because I was spreading my business, I was like, let's bring them in. I'm on the East Coast, and I would have clients way out on the West Coast. And listen, just because it's 8 p.m. for me, that's not their problem.
Yep.
They're available until 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. their time. So that means I had to be available. I remember I had to do a radio interview. It ended up being 1 a.m. my time, because the show was 12 hours time difference. It was 1 a.m. my time, and it was on camera. So let me tell you, I had to take a nap because I needed to look like something. Take a nap, have all the lights on when it was time. Puffing up the cheeks. I was ready, and I looked like it was like early morning. What are you going to do? Like, oh my God, I'm so sleepy. Like back, I can't do it. It was on. I was like, just the clarity. Is this on camera? Is it on camera? Oh yes. Okay. I'll be ready. But wake up, girl, wake up. I'm sipping on coffee at midnight. Like
you were up until 6 a.m. that morning, probably.
I bet you I was. Mm-hmm. But you have to do what you have to do in the beginning. Once you get past certain stages, you give it all you give it all you got. You stay all in all the time. You don't take your foot off the gas. And that's something that you have to learn. People, we get in, we put our foot on the gas, and then we take our foot off the gas. And then sometimes we put our foot on the whole brake. Like you put your foot on the gas, you keep your foot on the gas. Now, if life happens and stuff like that, the things that happen in life forces you to think about, how do I scale this business? Because it wasn't until my father first time got really ill and I chose to be with him in another state full time, give him my undivided attention. And while I was with him, I was not working. I gave him my undivided attention. And it occurred to me, I said, you know what? Some things have got to change because I have the privilege of being a business owner. However, I'm still in bondage as if I was employed. It's not going to work. And so I sat there and I was at my kitchen table. He had recovered enough for me to leave. And that was about an 8-week journey. And I came back and I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was looking out the window and I said, we got to change some things because what I'm doing is not sustainable. And if it were me that was sick for 8 weeks, what would happen? And I choose to be, that's a choice I made. He did not ask me to be there. I chose to be there. I would do the same for my mother, anything, right? I chose that life and that decision. And I would make the same decision again. But it was because of life why I said some things have got to change because what I'm doing right now clearly isn't sustainable.
Right. So I've got, just one more question and then we'll start to wrap things up here. But, you say you're a constant learner. You've got your RN, so you've got your bachelor's, you've got a master's degree.
Yeah.
Did your master's degree in business help prepare you, or I guess help you kind of bring your company to the forefront, or was it more trial and error?
Okay. Because I'm still paying for the MBA. You know what I mean? I'm pro education, but let me tell you honestly, the MBA prepared me to understand high level business things. It helped me to understand business because an MBA doesn't necessarily teach you how to run a business. It teaches you how to run someone's company. And
teaches
so
how to administer.
Yeah, honestly. Now, of course, when was the new one, the Entrepreneurs MBA, that's a new one that's out. That wasn't out when I got my MBA. I didn't know anything about this entrepreneurs thing. However, I will say when I've seen the curriculum for the Entrepreneurs MBA and the standard MBA, if that choice was available to me now, I would still take the MBA. That's just my choice based on the curriculum I saw. So the MBA prepared me with the corporate language and insight that I would need. But to become the businesswoman I am today, that did come with some trial and error. And that also came with me going to external conferences and external courses. Yeah. But the MBA sometimes is also required because in this society, if you don't have a piece of paper or, a couple alphabets behind your name, you're not qualified enough. And one thing I was not going to do was I was going to sit here and have a justification conversation about why I can help your company scale, considering I've done it for the past 5+ years at the time with another company. I was not going to keep justifying that. And so that's 2 reasons I went. I went to make sure no one required me to go. I went on because of my own, but I went because when I want to understand the language of corporate, I wanted to understand some different perspectives, which would make me better. But then also I am not going to keep justifying myself that I am the right person for you because I don't have an MBA behind you, because that's the expectation.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, dealing with who you're dealing with, I mean, that definitely makes, let's say that maths, it connects the dot.
Yeah, that's what
for
they
sure.
want. Because I couldn't show up in there. The places I have been, and I've been blessed to be in, and the companies I have been able to serve. I would not, I think I would have had to work a lot harder to get the opportunity with only my RN behind me, because they'll be like, okay, you're an RN and you're going to help me scale my business. Like, how is that going to work? You want me to hand over my $5 million or $10 million company to you? Really?
Yep.
Right. And so that was that. I had to have that, those are the things I have to have. So that MBA does help to open up other doors. There's one other I'm getting, but I'll tell you about that next year.
Fair enough.
And that will be my last. That's my last education journey. But this one that I'm getting is off the chain amazing. Like, it's the epitome of greatness. But I will tell you about that one next year.
All right. I'll hold you to that, and we're going to follow up next year.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, we usually end every episode by giving our guests, a few minutes to leave a message to our listeners, whether it's you want to offer advice, discuss what you care about, promote your business, expand on personal experience, kind of whatever comes to mind. This is time for you, Natasha, to have the floor and give our listeners a little bit extra of what you have to offer.
Well, here's what I can say, guys. Just keep your head down. Keep your head down. Do good work. Don't try to be the next fad out there. Be authentic to yourself and do good work. Constantly work on making you a better person professionally, but also as an individual. I think that in this world of business, it's also heavier and more intense now. It's definitely more intense now. And so because of the work environment or the economic environment that we're in, we're finding ourselves in this really weird place that we're having to do all this stuff to get to this one isolated place. And I want to challenge you to don't feel compelled to do all of this stuff. Get laser focused. Become the me only zone. Don't worry about being in the me too and the me also zone. Focus on being in the me only zone so that you can have what you need. When you are in the me also and the me too zone, it's crowded. It's very crowded and you're fighting through that much more. So I challenge you to be in the me only zone. Get laser focused. Keep your head down. Be the best at what you do. Mediocrity has no place. And I promise you that you will look up one day and everything that you've been wanting, everything that you need is going to be right there in front of your face. You're going to be like, whoa, it's really happened. So I can offer that as some tangible advice for everyone.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Keep your head down, be in the meat only zone, and you will do great things.
Yes.
How can our listeners find out more about Natasha and Impact Branding Consulting and everything you've got to offer?
Awesome. I tell everyone the fast place to go is go to impactbrandingconsulting.org. You can go to impactbrandingconsulting.org. You'll find everything that you need about the company. You can also find out things about me. Some people's like, well, what about you? Well, you can just go to natashadavisvisionary.com and you can find out all that good stuff. Again, that's natashadavisvisionary.com. And I look forward to connecting with you guys.
Love it. All right. Well, as you know, my name is Derek DeLomo. I'm the owner of both Tremonti Financial Consultants and Tremonti Tax Solutions, together referred to as Tremonti. Tremonti bridges the gap between financial advisors and accountants by serving as CFO to our clients. We specifically love to work with business owners to develop a proactive tax strategy that maximizes after-tax profits. It's our job to help you earn more, be more efficient, grow faster, and pay as little in taxes as legally possible. If this idea piques your interest, please go to TremontiTax.com and click on the Schedule Now button to book a 15-minute chat with me. Whether we end up working together or not, I'd love to hear from you. With all that said, Natasha, it was really great talking to you today. I appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
For those listening, if you enjoyed today's episodes and had a few helpful takeaways, we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with other business-minded friends. This has been another episode of the Traversing Entrepreneurship podcast. We hope you had fun today and hope you did too. Thanks a lot, Natasha. Thank you for being here, and thank you for tuning in and listening.